Ah, there we go. Now we're finally live. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Don't Panic, the show where we try to remember do not panic when things go wrong during the year. My partner in crime this evening, of course, is Chris Marr and or Mayor. Oh my God, I said your name wrong. All the whole time. Chris Mayor. Chris, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's up, man? How are you? It's good to be back, and we got a guest this time.
Yes, we do. And we're both extremely excited. If you follow either one of us, you have seen him before. If you're on Twitter, you've definitely seen him. And if you follow the queue, hopefully you are aware of who he is, because you should be aware of who he is. Our friend, and I would say Quebec Major Junior Hockey League scout, writer, and just all around great guy, Craig Eagles. Welcome to the show.
Well, guys, thanks so much for having me back, and don't panic. I'll tell you, these uncertain times. Hopefully, not a lot of people are panicking out there. But anyway, it's great to be able to talk hockey with you, and lots to talk about going on in Flyerland. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys because it just reminded me of something I did want to bring up, and I didn't bring it up in our pre-show, but nothing controversial. But I think it goes with the theme of our episode, and this is something Chris and I talk about a lot. And Chris, I know you watch Steve Dangle's podcast, which, by the way, if the people watching this haven't watched them, they're really great, and their production value has gone on. They have Chris Johnson on their network, they're, for as far as like a fan.
I think they got a whole new studio this year too.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like a fan generated hockey broadcast, they're exceptional, and they're really good. I don't agree with them on everything, but they're really good.
I don't either.
No, it's hard. I mean, they're Toronto Maple Leafs fans, so
they talk about the Leafs there like Philly talks about the Eagles.
Yeah, well, and that's and that's why I want to bring this up. I want to bring up the topic of don't panic real quick, because they had an interesting conversation come up, because Chris and I have talked about this. And again, I highly recommend their show. But they definitely have a tendency to get more emotional than Chris and I. Let's just put it that way. And they had a bunch of comments because, Toronto had a very disappointing end to their season. And then, they haven't played amazing to start the year, though they don't have Austin Matthews, right? So they lost some games. And they were having a conversation about kind of the negative reaction, because people reached out to them because they're getting a little negative online. And, they kind of explain themselves to some degree, which I think is valid. Some of them have some life issues going on, and definitely doesn't help when you're dealing with the type of stuff. And I like what they said, right? Like, this is the one thing, I got my one thing here. Like, don't hurt me too, But I thought it was interesting that they talked about that they get a lot of like feedback when they go full negative. And Jesse on the show, Jesse Blake, he brought something up really good, and he explained it best because he's less negative than they are. He's just a calmer person overall. He said, we can't do this every game, He's like, we can't go after every loss and after every problem. It's exhausting to be this way. And I think it's a big reason why Chris and I do this show. Yeah. And I want to see what you guys think about that. That idea that it's exhausting to be negative. And Chris, go ahead. You look like
the entire reason this show was made was because of watching last season. Like, the entire reason why we came up with doing this was because of watching how bad that team was last year.
Yes.
And how frustrating it was to watch the same things every single game. I mean, like, the two of us sounded like broken records by the time you were like a quarter of the way through March at that point. So yeah, like, we see it all the time on Twitter, and Craig, I'm sure you've seen it too. Like, just from everybody just being so negative on guys that are younger, and if they're hurt or if they have one bad game, like even last game for the Flyers, from just the one period of play in the first game of the season, it's like everybody is so negative, and it happens. So yeah, I mean, it definitely gets exhausting. And I think, again, from what I said, like the entire reason the show was made was to not talk about the negative things all the time. That was the whole purpose of it.
Well, I'll tell you, if you look behind me, obviously you can tell a little bit of fandom here, but if you're talking about negativity, you have to talk about Boston and Boston sports fans and especially Bruins. All this talk about bad contracts and bad dealings and blaming Sweeney and all of this stuff. I'll leave you with this one thought. I was conducting an interview with an executive of a QMJHL franchise, and that executive basically said this: it's easy to be negative. It's easy to be negative, and anyone can be negative. So when you have the blinders on, so to speak, and when you're looking too narrow and not see it big picture, especially when it comes to prospects and young players in your lineup, all right, that negative energy and that negative tunnel, so to speak, can be devastating for a franchise trying to make a go and trying to develop players. So we all know the importance of player development. We all understand that it's a process and that it takes time. And that one negativity and one negative aspect. And I know people are out there going to say, well, it's a business, they should be prepared and all this stuff. We've talked about it before, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. It's a process, and you have to, from an organizational standpoint, you have to address that negativity, and you have to with positivity and honesty and transparency. Mm-hmm. All right. And it starts from management and it goes all the way down. And when the coach, and I'll just use this as an example, when Bruce Cassidy goes to the mic and he's brutally honest, when they sent Wagner down, put him on waivers and sent him down to Province, that is what you need in a coach with regards to, the message being sent to the media. Because let's face it, the media, they're feeding off that negative energy. They want the story. They want the attention, and we're so driven by negativity in everything that we see now because everyone has a platform for it. And it's the clicks and it's all that attention over negativity when you've got to look big picture.
Yeah, I think it's honestly well said. Yeah, nice job. Well said there. And what I find really interesting is that as a Philadelphia fan, I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that coming from Boston, right? Because Boston's got a lot of championships within the past decade. And it just, I think it's a great example of like kind of lack of perspective. And I bring this up all the time, like how lucky we are to be, a Boston team, right? For one, who wins regularly or is competitive, highly competitive regularly. The Flyers are one of the best playoff performing teams of all time as far as the NHL goes. Yes, we don't have as many cups, but we're consistently at the top. Maybe not over the past decade, but if you listen to older fans, it's like they've been tortured their whole lives. But most cities don't even touch the Stanley Cup Finals, and we've been there quite a bit. And I think it's just important to know that. And that's what like Chris was saying. He said, well, right, like the show's created because of last season. Because me and him in the background, like, yes, we're frustrated like everybody else, and we think the anger is justified in a lot of degree. But we just try to remind people, like, hey, don't panic. Like, don't think like, oh, we got to trade the team, we got to fire this person, this person. Yeah. Like, it's like, ineffective.
That's not how you win.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest conversations of us creating this show was, I don't remember who brought it up, but one of us brought up how like Washington and Pittsburgh and Boston for so many years and Tampa Bay, they kept all their core guys together, for how long it was for Tampa Bay from 2015 when they went to the Cup final, and then going to the conference finals a couple years later. And then being one of the best teams ever in the NHL, getting swept in the first round. They didn't fire John Cooper. They kept everybody. They re-signed everyone. They kept drafting. They did everything. Kept everybody together, and then they ended up winning back-to-back cups, and they're looking to go for their third. Like, you can't win if you overreact and trade guys after a season. It's not going to work, especially in the NHL. So when everybody last year was saying, get rid of Giroux and Voracek and then people were starting to get concerned that Couturier would re-sign and that guys like Farabee would end up getting traded, and this was like legit. Like this is just some of the things that we saw last year. Travis Konechny getting shipped out, like
Pretty much anything you can think of. Anything you can think of.
Carter Hart.
Carter Hart's career is over. He's not as good as we thought he was.
Everything.
This year, we're going to talk about it. Morgan Frost gets set down in the beginning. Now everybody is like, oh, he's clearly not a good prospect. He's at I've heard people say that he's a fourth-line player in the NHL, which, again, I don't even think his game
stopped developing, like all of this stuff.
At 25 years old. So, little things like that. I mean, Nolan Patrick obviously felt it. And he's probably still feeling it to some degree because people are still going after him. But we saw a lot of it.
Let's look at Toronto, the epicenter of hockey in this country, in Canada, right? Like, just for 2 seconds, let's back off. And from a media perspective, let's not throw all these young players that they have under the bus. Let's not zero in and put them all under the microscope for a minute. And let's let them play. Let them play. What do you think's going to happen?
Well,
what do you think's going to happen?
Toronto's a similar position to Tampa Bay, aren't they? Like exactly what Chris was just explaining, right? They could have gone the path of, Marner's not good enough. Tavares is at the end of his career. Like Morgan Riley's going to want too much money. Get rid of him now. It's like, or just keep your team that was in first place. Fill in the gaps and go again. Like, dust yourself off and go again.
And the biggest
works and go from there.
The biggest gap in Leafland would be, all right, very similar to what the Bruins went through last year during the playoffs, was their bottom six. They needed to address their bottom six. They needed more character. They needed better performances from their bottom six. So how do you go about doing that? Well, you target certain free agents and you develop young players to fulfill that role, and those young players can play up and down your lineup. And that's what they're trying to do. And it's, they're trying not to panic right now, which is a good thing, but they still have some holes in their defensive play, and they have to be accountable for that. And Chris, you mentioned the core group. I tell this story often. I was in Boston, 2009. It was trade deadline day, and there was a lot of talk around that rink, around their practice facility, that Bergeron could have potentially been on the trading block. Now, think about that. That's just rumor, that's hearsay. If people are talking, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there was some talk of that. So I was down there, and ironically went to practice that morning, and then my girlfriend at the time, fiance, now wife, we had to travel back from Boston back to New Brunswick, and we're listening to this sports radio on the way home, and lo and behold, Bergeron's not going anywhere, and they go out and they acquire Mark Recchi, and the rest is history. So the don't panic mentality of let's keep this and these special players together long term. Let's give them a chance instead of, there's no value there. The value's gone. Let's give them an opportunity to show their value. All right. Not in year one, year two, but let's project for a minute. Where's this kid going to be at 26, 27? Where's he going to be? And if there's character issues, then that's fine. You deal them. But if there's no character issues, you surround them, you embrace that, and you bring value, and you make that player feel appreciated. And I'll tell you, they'll go to the ends of the earth for you.
Look at Sam Bennett, who had a hat trick last night. I mean, how many people talked down on him until he was traded to Florida? Yeah. Where now he's...
And even at that point, and you had all the pundits on Hockey Night in Canada saying, he's just a third line player. He's a fourth line player. He's a depth player for the Panthers. Well, he proved them all wrong, right?
Yeah. Well said. All right, let's move into the guts of this show, and let's talk about. Chris, did I cut you off? I'm sorry, dude.
No,
Did you-
You're
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure. Okay, let's get into the guts of the next episode because I think that was a good tone setter. For those of you who are not aware of Craig, he's obviously positive like Chris and I, but he's also a specialty at watching young talent. He does scout the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and we brought him on here to talk about two players. One is a younger one, and the other one is obviously a guy who's going to be joining the team. He has more knowledge on both these guys than Chris and I. Let's start with Zach McEwen, though. New arrival was a waiver pickup by the Philadelphia Flyers. We have yet to see him play. He had some visa issues, obviously, because of the U.S.-Canada border issues. But this is a guy that you are familiar with. And I think, we look, what I know about him, and this is what Chris and I talked about, right? Big, strong kid. He well regarded. Didn't have a great training camp from what I understand in Vancouver, which is why he was waived. But the fan base seemed pretty upset that he was going. And again, big, strong, physical, seems to have some upside. Had a good junior career, put up points there, especially at the end. So what do you think about him? What do you think about Zach?
Well, I first saw Zach McEwen come into the Moncton Wildcats organization, and it was I think, year 2 of covering that league from a broadcast perspective. So we covered the year before and Zach's rookie year. So he came in as an undrafted. So he went undrafted into the queue. He was playing Maritime Junior A hockey for the Amherst Ramblers, famed organization. Bill Riley coached there, former NHLer. And the old Amherst Stadium is the house that Bill Riley made. But when he came into the Wildcats, everyone was looking and saying, well, where's he going to fit? He's 18. What's going on? Like, why? It quickly became apparent why the Moncton Wildcats went after him and signed him as a free agent, because this kid, Darren Rumble, was the head coach at the time, gained the trust of Rums right away by his defensive play, by his offensive play. He was accountable in all 3 zones. He made the easy plays look easy, and the little subtle plays coming out of his zone, he was always back. And at that point, he started playing up and down the lineup. And he's very versatile. And you're saying, well, he was 18, it's major junior hockey. Well, here's a kid that never played elite level hockey all the way up through, right? Through and through, Islander, hard nosed, but then started to grow and grew into that frame and grew into the body, the talent, his hands, very underrated skill set offensively as well. This kid can shoot the puck. He's good in traffic, and I'll tell you, he's going to be a fan favorite for years to come. But right away, it was all about trust and gaining the trust of his coach. And by 19, I'll never forget this. We're at Rogers TV is covering the award ceremony, year-end award ceremony, and Zach won Most Improved Player, something like that. And I know it's only a team event. It's not a league-wide event, but they went on a long playoff run with Connor Garland, Garland's last 2 years there. McEwen is 19. This kid fought, right? And I asked him the question. I said, did you do enough? And people don't realize this. He was fighting to play in that league as an overager the following year. To play as an overager in the queue. Did he do enough? And he, right? Humble Maritimer, humble, hardworking, blue-collar Islander says, well, I think I did, but we'll see where that takes me. That's Zach McEwen. And look where he is right now. Moncton should have never traded him, but they did. All right. Gave him an opportunity in Gatineau. He goes there. He's over. Again, I don't have a stat sheet. I could pull it up. But he's a point a game player. for Gatineau. Top line guy, playing through the middle, and signs an American Hockey League deal. And 2 years later, he's in the show. So that's the type of character guy that Zach McEwen really is.
So you would say he's pretty much been underestimated considerably, at least from outsiders, kind of the whole career. So it's almost like him getting dropped to the waivers almost is enigmatic of what he's gone through in general.
Well,
and getting another chance in Philly. Or am I overanalyzing that?
No, you're not. And I have to be very mindful of what I'm going to say right now because I don't want to. Anyway, well, let's be brutally honest, okay?
Let's get into it.
It pisses me off that Vancouver waived him, to be honest with you.
Talk to me.
All right? Well, it's just it's upsetting. It really is. It's like, why? Here's a character kid. He's 25 years old. All right. He protects his teammates, drops the gloves with anyone, doesn't back down.
Saw that.
Right. And he's got a coach in Travis Green. He was a hell of a player. He was a hell of a player. Right. But you look at Green, you look at Zach McEwen, Green might have been a little bit more shifty, a little bit more offensive, but same type of player, stick up for his teammates, bottom six guy, can play up and down your lineup. All right. You put him in that role, and then you don't play him. You don't play him. So the kid's earned the trust, okay, all the way through his career. Right? The trust of their coach. In Utica when he was there, okay, they loved him. Right? They loved him. And then all of a sudden he gets to the show, signs a contract, and you don't play him. What the hell's that? No, seriously, what the hell's that? You sign a player, right? And then you healthy scratch him. Okay? You want here's your role. He goes out and delivers it, but you don't play him.
That's a good point. Do you think Jim Benning has anything to do with this in general? Because didn't they bring in Zach Cassian? Or not? No, Alex Chason, right?
That's what I had seen. I don't know if that was why. I saw that Chason being brought in was kind of what had McEwen go out the door.
That's what I heard.
Okay, so let's look at comparables then. Okay, Chason, he's a solid player. I'm not going to discredit Chason. I'm not going to do that. But let's look at the comparables, right? Zach McEwen, well-liked, well-respected, team guy, team first guy, has been that all the way through. Do you think maybe he's going to be missed by their top end guys? Their top end guys that are young, top end guys, and know that Zach McEwen is going to have their back. And he's not just a fighter, guys. He's not just a fighter. That's not who he is. He can play. And if he's given an opportunity to play, he'll prove his worth. He'll prove his value. All right. And he's the type of guy that at the NHL level, he can play up and down your lineup. Now, is he a top end guy? Is he going to score you 20? No. But put in the right situation, Zach McEwen he's an effective NHL. And it really bothers me. And I spoke to an NHL scout earlier this week. They were kind of surprised that Van waived him.
Yep.
And, and I'll just put it this way. All right. I know we're live here and stuff like that, but there are other NHL teams interested in Zach McEwen.
I mean, Flyers, because we lost Wade Allison this year, and Chris, sorry if I cut you off, but we lost Wade Allison this year, who's our physical, and again, he's got a higher offensive upside than McEwen, but he was the guy who was supposed to bring a big physical element to us, play on the right side. He plays with an edge. And when I saw McEwen picked up, I was like, that's like exactly what we were missing.
And just to add to that, like me and Yariv had talked about, like, they don't necessarily have a guy on the bottom six that can just like physically beat up people.
And not punching. We talking about like forechecking.
Mm-hmm, yeah, like big hits, like the way he skates, all that stuff. And they haven't necessarily really had that since probably Zach Ronaldo and Wayne Simmons were some of the last two guys that really did that for the Flyers. Simmons was obviously more of the offensive punch, though, and obviously was more power play, but you get my point. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I think the Flyers signed him was, well, yeah, I mean, bring him over, but yeah, I mean, at 6'3", 205 and having 23 fights in 55 NHL games, I'm like, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, and you mentioned skating, Chris. The perceived knock on McEwen throughout his career.
I feel like that's a lot of players always have that knock is skating. Like Konechny had it, and it was never really an issue, was it?
It was never an issue because of his will to compete. Right. So, like,
it's like Mark 50 too.
Well, yeah, but a 50-50 puck battle. Okay, at the junior level, Zach McEwen was going to win that 50-50 puck battle probably 90% of the time. And it's the dogged determination that he has on the back check at that level and all the way through that really is going to pay dividends. And that's why he's in the National Hockey League. Give the kid a chance to play, and he'll prove people wrong, right? He's proved people wrong throughout his life. You talk about character. I could get into more stories about his character, but he'll prove that to you. He'll show you because he's done it throughout his career at every level, right? And anyway, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I think if they give him a good opportunity, he will be a very serviceable, third, fourth line guy that is going to forecheck. He can kill penalties for you. He can block shots. He's very versatile, and he can play both positions. He can play the right side and through the middle. So hopefully, fingers crossed, the Flyers stay healthy. But if they're getting hit by the injury bug, he can play. Yeah. He just needs an opportunity.
Right. And kind of just to go off that too, I'm curious to see how the Flyers do it since they picked up Patrick Brown the day before, who was also the similar guy who can not as physical, but can play center, can play the right side. So I'm curious to see how we'll use him because AV already did essentially guarantee that he would play Brown, but he was put on COVID. So he's still on that list as of today. And same with McEwen, the visa issue. AV said he should be here by midweek. So we might see him by this weekend if the Flyers have any lineup tinkerings or somebody gets hurt. But I would assume probably in the next coming weeks is when McEwen's probably we're going to see him maybe in the game.
Well, his contract is a good contract. And, he'll be playing for a contract in the upcoming years. So, again, I can't stress it enough. He's earned it all the way through. Yeah. And you could say, well, it's the NHL, Craig. They've all earned it. Yes, but every player has a different path. Every player, you look at an undrafted player like Zach McEwen, and there's a few of them around here. Matthew Highmore with the Canucks, and Phil Myers and Ross Johnson, all those guys undrafted, but it's the character that they bring. That's the intangible, and they always have that character and a great teammate, and that's electric in a room. And say what you want to say about Marintimers and all this stuff, but bottom line, boys, is you have a Maritimer in your dressing room. They're going to bring that. They're going to bring that energy game in, game out, and that's what Zach McEwen does.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted a guy like McEwen, I'm personally more excited about him than Brown. But not because, and not because I don't think highly of either. Honestly, I don't know either of them well. So time will tell. But you look at the games that the Flyers have played and struggled in the most. And we used to be the Broadsheet Bullies, and I'm not saying we need to be the Broadsheet Bullies at all anymore. But when we play the Islanders, a team that's very physical, we struggle. We play the Bruins. They're very physical. We struggle. And it's like this element when a team imposes their physicality on the Flyers. And I do think they've improved this year so far in that respect. But I think it can be a strength of ours rather than a weakness. Yeah. And I think a guy like McEwen is the first step into that because we have a guy now, and we have Nicholas Aube-Kubel on the fourth line. He's a talented fourth line player. You obviously know him well, right? He played in the Q. He's an agitator. He's almost like a Konechny light in a lot of ways, right? He brings like a lot of, but at the same time, he's not the biggest guy. Like he's not intimidating or imposing. He's more of a pest than he is an imposing guy. He can play physically. He can hit big. Maybe more
Thompson as well.
Yeah. But Nate Thompson's more like a defensive specialist.
Yeah.
He's not really a mean guy. He's kind of a really good
that
guy.
Line did have a couple good hits though the other night.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Thompson has a role in this team. I think McEwen is one of these things that we really, like you said, we haven't. Maybe Braden Shen was the last time we had a guy who's like a little bit bigger and like always laid out the body big and could drop the gloves after the play as well. And you talk about Wayne Simmons. That's things changed a little bit more, and we got a lot of young guys on this team. So like what you were saying that benefits Vancouver, I really think that's something the Flyers need too. Like Travis Konechny is a pest. So like let him go out there, be a pest, and then let people answer to McEwen. Right. And I don't mean fight. I mean like literally go out there and start stuff. These people think that this is dying from the game of hockey. I really do not believe it is. I think it's more important now than ever because there's less intimidating guys than ever. Yeah. So if you have a Ryan Reeves, it's like a superstar tough guy.
Yeah. The other day I was listening to an interview with Zach Cassian, and he had talked about how he doesn't think it's the legitimate fighting. It's like the staged fighting that kind of has gone out of the game. And I think that's where the drop off is. And I think another thing too, is I think the physicality that was added with the Flyers, I think that started with Ristolainen on the defensive side, because I think that was needed more on the defensive side of the puck. And then they added that with McEwen. So I think, Ristolainen getting back and being, listed at 6'3", and he's huge. So, that can be used to the Flyers' advantage as well.
Do you want to have a team that has team toughness, and is a team that's hard to play against or tough to play against? Or do you want to have one or two guys that can throw, punches?
No, you want team toughness.
Exactly.
And like you were saying, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like you were saying, I think it needs to be reiterated because you did say it, is McEwen also can play. Yeah. He's not a guy who's just in there to drop the gloves either. And that's part of the team toughness element.
Exactly. And, you look at the playoffs and playoff picture, and I keep bringing up the Bruins, but it was the Islanders' energy players that beat the Boston Bruins. It was their energy. Wasn't, you could compare top six. Yeah. It was their energy players.
That fourth line.
Exactly. Their third and fourth line
that wore down the Flyers too in that series.
Exactly.
And the thing that added to it was they scored. Go ahead. I didn't cut you off.
No, but you're right. Zach McEwen is an energy player. And do you want players that are going to be tough to play against? And the answer to that is yes. And that's where team toughness comes through. And that's why you have some young talent, right, that feel and play bigger because they know this guy's got my back. And the guy, right, sitting beside me and across from me, they care about me. They've got me. Okay, let's go kick some ass. And that's what's going to happen, right? And when you have that in your core group, right, and it spreads, it's infectious, right? Yeah. When your top guys play with that energy, play on the edge, but that, hey, if the going gets tough, we've got some guys, and let's go play. And that's the mentality that a lot of NHL teams want to get to, right? But look at the Knights. The first year the Knights came in, right? They had that mentality of, okay, right, we're going to be tough to play against because we're fast, we're big, we're strong, we're in on, right? We're in on the forecheck, right? We're going to be aggressive, and that's, I think, where the Rangers are right now with Turk behind the bench. I think Turk's going to get them in that direction as well. So it all goes back to what type of team identity do you want to have? Like, we were talking about the Leafs earlier, right? We can talk about the Canadians. We can talk about the Oilers. Well, what's their team identity? What's the identity of the Toronto Maple Leafs right now? Are they a hardworking team? Are they a tough team to play against?
No. they're a skill team that relies heavily on their top guys.
Yeah,
which
and
is
they're-
not.
their top line and their power play.
and their power play.
And if you think about Tampa Bay, I'm sorry to cut you off, but Tampa Bay, they won because of their superstars, right? But we all know about the bottom 6 guys on that team. Like everybody is aware of who grinded
That
their
was the
way through those
final
playoffs.
piece of the puzzle for them. Getting
Yes.
guys like Goudreau and Coleman and everything. It just everything clicked.
Absolutely.
They're a tough team to play against.
Yeah, well said. I like what you said there about identity, and I think that's something the Flyers are really trying to build. And like I'm sitting here in my head, and we're missing Kevin Hayes, obviously, and I have this like stupid fantasy right now where I'm like, you put McEwen with like Scott Lawton, and maybe Nicholas Aube-Kubel on the left side, maybe vice versa, and I'm like, that is a very difficult fourth line to play against because like McEwen's gonna slam you. Lawton is probably the best fourth line center in the league if he's on the fourth line because he's too good for it. And then Aube-Kubel is a guy who's still with upside and same scoring touch. It's like they're just going to be a nightmare to play against.
And then
Chris, I don't know if you see
everything that Brown brings too, you could even throw that in the mix.
Yeah, and then you bench, unfortunately, Nate Thompson. But you look at and Thompson's also that type of guy. Like he's a very difficult player to play against. He's towards the end of his career, but he is a workhorse type of guy, and that's why the Flyers brought him in here.
And he's still very physical for his age and the way he plays.
Well, and he can play through the middle, and that's where Thompson is
he's
more
good at face-off.
effective. And he's a face-off guy, and he's a face-off. And if you can get there, right, he's a playoff guy through and through. He'll go through a wall for you. Right.
Yes.
And he'll shut 100%. Guys down. He'll shut guys down. So you look at, we could do the graphics and the stats. I'm not a big stats guy. You both know that. But look at their fourth lines of the last 9 or 10 Stanley Cup winning teams. Right. Serviceable, speed, grind. Right. And basically have that shutdown element, right? That's what teams are looking for. That's what organizations and that's what general managers are keying in on. And especially in the salary cap era, they're trying to get, the cheapest bottom 6 type of player, right? And how much are you going to pay them and how much are you willing to pay for that type of player that's going to go out and potentially win you a Stanley Cup?
Yeah, well said. Chris, you want to add anything?
No, I think that's perfect.
Hold on, we got a question there by Trevor Giroux, who welcome to the team, Trevor. Appreciate it, buddy. New writer. For those who are not aware of listening to this, make sure to follow him, read his stuff.
This one?
Thoughts on the Coyotes and the Leafs easing game dress code. I actually didn't hear about this.
I didn't either.
Maybe I did and I forgot.
I saw Arizona. I wasn't sure about Toronto though.
Personally, I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I'm gonna go and probably say something that's not popular. I like Lou Lamoriello, and Lou Lamoriello is an old school guy, and he makes you shave your face every day. He makes you pay attention to the little details. He wants you to do stuff that you don't want to do, to remind yourself that you're a professional. To not make your day easy every day, because he wants you to realize that life is hard, which it is. I would say probably a mistake. But again, I've never been an NHL athlete, and I don't know, Craig, maybe, or Chris, obviously, maybe you guys have different opinions there, but I probably am against it, even though I'm a very informal guy. Like, I don't like wearing suits.
I mean, look, I don't know if you guys saw the picture, but when Kyle Palmieri was traded there, the picture from the day before and the day after when he had a full beard and then it was completely clean shaved.
Oh, he knew what he was getting into.
Yeah, it was great. But one guy I know that would not be happy about that is Derek Settlemeyer. He used to be the head equipment manager of the Flyers for a very long time. I've talked
Shout out to Nasty.
Yeah, Nasty's great.
Friend of the show.
But personally, I think it's more of how do I describe this? Not more of a branding thing, because I think the one thing that hockey does not have that other sports have is the personal aspect of the players, and guys being on social media and things like that, and you can kind of see their true colors if they're on or not if they're on, but if they're wearing something different, like when we saw guys from Toronto like in the bubble and they had all like the crazy clothes on and stuff. I think that would be more of a different thing. I also think I have a different view of it because I'm 18 and I'm younger and I'm more, I guess, in this generation. So it's I guess it's a different kind of feel to it for me. But Craig, I'm not too sure if you have any thoughts on that.
I've got a few. Opinions are like noses. Everyone has one. So I'm going to offer mine. We can look at personality and players and their fashion and their individuality. I think it is what it is. There's two sides to this. There's the old school traditional, you dress, you wear a tie, and that was showcased by someone that was on Hockey Night in Canada for a long, long time. And obviously, why are we filming hockey players coming into the rink? Right? Is it to reveal the other side of the game, the personalities? Do they welcome the camera there, like other sports do? If you've watched the Last Dance, and I'm sure a lot of people have, when Jordan came walking in to the arena, cameras and mics were shoved in his face. I think. All the time, right? The old footage of the Bulls in the 90s. I really think it's a great question, and thank you for the question, Trevor, because now the game is transitioning into more individual, right? Rather than the old school team aspect of things. And I think personality is great. I wrote an article on stage celebrations and got ripped. People ripped me for that one because stage sellies and all this stuff. You can celebrate. You get to the major junior level, you can celebrate a goal all you want. I'm not criticizing that. But when kids that are 8, 9, and 10 that are practicing their celebrations in practice rather than practicing their skills, the old school coach comes out and says, what the heck's, what's he doing? Work on your skills, young man, right? Or right? Like it just doesn't.
The one thing I feel you on that is like act like you scored a goal before.
Exactly, but that's an old school take, supposedly in 2021, 2022, right? But like let's face it, okay? Why are the cameras filming the players as they're walking in? Why, right? Is it to reveal their personality, right? Do they want the cameras on these players more and more? And the answer to that is yes, because they want to reveal the other side of the game. So if someone comes in and they're dressed like this, or if someone comes in and they're dressed like that, then that's fine. But, all right, when you go behind closed doors, and this was my feel as a coach, some years I didn't care what the kids wore to game days. My biggest thing, when they put on the jersey, they're playing for the jersey. They're not playing for the name on the back, and they play as a team.
Sure.
And you can show all your individuality all you want, but when you throw the jersey on, it's team. And I think that's a common, right, feel across the hockey world. But anything that push the envelope, I think, of tearing down certain aspects of the hockey culture and perspective, I think is a good thing, because the culture, guys, at some levels, it's ridiculous. So if a player feels comfortable dressing this way, then let the player dress that way. If the player wants to dress like that, let them dress like that. But when they get behind closed doors in the room, it's team. And I think that's how winning gets done at that level.
I think that's a good point with the personality stuff. And, I do see the point there where it can open up like marketability of the sport. But like I'm such like I want to win a championship. Like I don't really care about the personality stuff. I'm like I want you guys to just be a team. Like I want you to pay attention to detail. Like I'm all for like I mean, I'm wearing like a fancy shirt right now. I'm all for that stuff. But at the same time, like my attitude is like, okay, but the teams that win are the ones that are extremely detail oriented and work like a team. So at the same time, I'm like, I don't really, for me personally, I'm like, I get it. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's not a huge debate for me, but if I was running the team, I'd be like, okay, you can all dress more casual, but you all need to unite on what that uniform is. I want you all wearing the same thing at least. If you really want to be unique, then come up with a style and put the detail into it. Like, I know that sounds weird, but I'd be like, okay, you want to all be Austin Matthews with the t-shirt and the suit on? Fine, but you all do it then.
With the bucket hat and the Jordans.
So is this like Heartbreak Ridge?
I don't know if I get
Clint
that
Eastwood.
Oh.
Clint Eastwood, he shows up, strip those t-shirts off. Well, we're all the same. Gunny, we're all the same. No, you're not. Are you the same as me? Well, how do we know? Improvise, adapt, overcome, right? So there you go, right? I love it. Be a team, that's fine. But do you want players? And that was my best Clint Eastwood. But anyway,
it wasn't bad actually.
If you want players, is it going to be a distraction? Is the fashion show
that's what I'm saying?
A distraction walking in? Is it going to just take away from the moment and from the team?
Probably
I don't know.
Probably not.
So
honestly, and that's the thing. Like, I kind of feel like you can still have fun and win a championship at the same time, though. Like, you can still add the fun element to it, and I think it just could just add more of, like, if it's literally just that 15-second clip of them walking into the arena when they're already pretty focused to begin with. I don't necessarily think that would that really change much to them?
So let me put a story out there, because I actually agree with what you're saying there, Chris, but it's making me think about something that I remember about Evander Kane. And I'm not going to sit here and pick on Evander Kane specifically about what's happening with him in his personal life. I don't really care, and it's not on my team, so I don't really care. But I do remember a story about Evander Kane in Winnipeg and how he refused to wear a certain attire that the teammates agreed on. And from what I remember, Mr. Dustin Bufflin, who was very much a heart and soul guy, and won a couple championships, I believe. I think it was a couple or just one. But yeah, obviously he was one of the leaders of that locker room. He took Evander Kane's clothing and threw it in the shower and soaked it. Now, I'm not saying I advocate for anything, but again, when I see that stuff, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't think the clothing represents that necessarily. Look at PK Subban, right? Like, he was always dressed in fancy and stuff, but there is some kind of thing where when you see somebody who wants to be the showy guy, sometimes there is an issue with like the team element of it. And I feel like then that's why I was trying to say what I was saying earlier. It's like, I'm cool with whatever it is they want to do, right? And maybe that's the way Toronto and Arizona is handling it. But I feel like I would leave it up to the players if it's up to me. Like, I wouldn't even I'd be like, okay, you guys want to dress more casually? That's what I was saying. Like, come up with a plan of how you guys want to dress, propose it to me, and I'll approve it. But you guys need to agree on it. That means you need to, as a team, if this is really a big thing for you, I need you guys to all agree on what you all can wear. Like that. And I know that sounds like maybe a little ridiculous to people, but it's one of those things where it's like, I want to see that you guys can work together and solve this problem. Don't put it on me to create new problems, right? Figure it out as a team. And I don't want to see anybody's clothing end up in the shower. Like, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Like, and I think that's the thing that worries me more than anything on TV. Like, the TV will eat all of it up, right? Like, if they come in with like sweatpants and flip-flops, they're gonna throw that person on TV. Look at their casual with the beard and they're gonna love it. So it doesn't matter. But for me, it's just like, whatever is not a distraction for you guys and doesn't create a problem.
I feel like it's more of a social media thing than it is anything. It's just more. Chris. Yeah. Like, sorry. I remember it like in the bubble when they didn't show, I think the Leafs walking in for game 1 against Columbus, and Nylander and Matthews and Marner and Riley, they were all like dressed up in just like shorts and t-shirts and Jordans and everything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and it was all over TSN's Instagram. I'm like, is this even for the team
not
or
for
is
us.
this? Yeah,
As I
it
said,
just seems like
it's
for
not for
social
me.
media, right?
Like I'm changing the channel if that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, let's try to move forward on this one. Trevor, it's definitely not a problem, dude. Let's try to move forward this one. I feel like we'll go in circles, and I don't know if there is a right answer. But let's get to the next topic, next player. And Craig, we're gonna start off with you, and Chris, obviously jump on in when you're ready to comment.
Yeah.
But Elliot Desnoyers, this is a player you're obviously very familiar with. He was just named the captain of the Mooseheads. He did have one preseason appearance here for the Flyers. He looked, quite frankly, fantastic in that game, especially at a few very strong shifts. A player that's stock has grown immensely over the past, I'd say, 18 months or so. Let's hear it, Craig. What are your thoughts on Elliot? And then Chris, please chime in whenever.
Well, we've talked about his progression, and I think it's phenomenal to see where this kid was, a year and a half ago. Right? A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where was Elliot Desnoyers? Well, Elliot Desnoyers was thought as, well, he might not get drafted. He's a good junior player. He's a really good junior player. He's going to play as an overage. And then let's look where he is now, right? So a depth third line guy on a championship caliber team in Moncton. He was going to maybe start on the fourth line center role in that team, and then COVID hit, and then right they get moved because Grew and McIsaac came from Halifax. Everyone knew Desnoyers was part of that deal, but look how much time and effort the kid put into his game to get to this point. And you want to talk about player development. There's a perfect example of the kid putting in the time and effort, and the results are there. He's going to be a pro. Hockey is his life, right? And he's a phenomenal, two-way player that's only going to get better. Is he going to have to work on his quickness? Yes, he knows that. But he'll get there just on sheer will and determination. He'll get there. And he has the puck skills and the scoring touch. We're seeing that at the junior level. So I just think the Philadelphia Flyers have done everything the right way in projecting a player like Elliot Desnoyers. And, he's going to be a middle six forward for you guys for years to come, just because of the way they've developed him and the way they've projected. Where's he going to be at 25 years old, right? It's really encouraging, and it's a great theme and a great story for those players that are on the fence, so to speak. 17, 18-year-old player, really, really good, midget age player comes into the queue. The offensive numbers aren't there at 17, 18, and then they blossom. They blow up, right? Because of the maturation process, because of, experience and reps and all those things. That's what Elliot Desnoyers is going to be for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Craig, if I could ask, how much do you think him being around the organization as much as he was throughout the summer helped him?
Oh, it's immense. It's immense. And you have to go back, Chris. You have to go back 2 summers.
Yeah.
The long layoff, the change of scenery. Everyone knew that Zachary Leroux and Desnoyers were going the other way, but they put the time and effort in. And when they put the time and effort in, they zeroed in on, especially Elliot, zeroed in on his skating and his quickness and his strength. And again, that's all about maturation process. And I think it's great to see the team bringing him in. Obviously, some injury, couple injuries there, but being around the team and seeing that, and giving him an exhibition game. Yeah. Now, for the folks out there, I don't know if they really understand what that means for these young kids. It means the world to them, and they go back to their junior teams and they take what they've learned from dev camps, and they take what they've learned from training camps and being around guys that they've watched on TV all their lives, and they take that back and they grow, right? Because they're just like sponges. They might not admit it at the time, right? But it pays dividends down the road. Ask any player. If you don't believe me, ask a player right now. And they'll always tell you, right? They'll always tell you. Nick Baudin in Chicago, right? His first dev camp, his first main camp was Duncan Keith. Duncan Keith took Nicolas Baudin aside and brought him right under his wing. Ask any young player and they'll tell you the guy, this one specific guy that brought them in, showed them the ropes, right? And we saw that in Washington, right? TJ Oshie, Henrix Lapierre, right? You need that core group, one or two players to embrace the young kids. And that's how, again, we've talked about it. That's how organizations build and, treat young players. It's not, putting the rookies down and treating them this way like it was 20 years ago. That's ancient, right? The organization brought him in, surrounded him with the program. I was talking to another NHL scout, last week, and they talked about how important it is for these young players to see what goes on. Okay, not on the ice. That's an element, obviously, but off the ice, how these guys treat their body, how do they rehab from an injury, how, what effort and how much time are they putting in, okay, off the ice, right? That's why these dev camps and main training camps are so important for these young players and prospects.
I think that's well said. Great question, Chris. Just to add context to those listening, first of all, it's the Moncton Wildcats, which I think traded him again. So it's the second time they came up. They traded somebody probably shouldn't have. Arriving to the Moncton, he had in 37 games, he had 21 goals, 28 assists, 49 points, a +12. And this season, since he returned from Flyers camp, he has 2 goals, 4 assists in 3 games. He is a +5 and was just named captain. So just to add to your point there, Craig, you can see already that probably that one game, which he did play very well, he probably took that confidence, ran with it, got named captain. Like, you think about what that does to the confidence of a young kid. And then, and it's kind of like we were talking about the jersey stuff. Again, or the suit stuff. I don't think I want to talk about the suits, but in general, like learning from the culture, right? I think is what you're trying to say. I do think that plays an immense role in all of this. And you can even ask like Chris and I, right? Like, we both started doing this from our bedrooms, right? We still do, right? But, Flyers Nitty Gritty, myself and Jamie, what we started here, now Chris is obviously a big part of it. What we started here, like Jamie and I got press access, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden,
I personally have my own as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Sorry. And we are going to these events, right? And we've done this for like 3 years already. Mm-hmm. We didn't know what we were doing at first. And Chris, like I remember talking, like, not that you didn't know what you're doing, but like the level of excitement, and it's like to us, like you take away from that, and all of a sudden, we were talking about Bill Meltzer a little bit prior to this, and Bill's right. Like, we talk him up. Now we're talking to Bill Meltzer. You like learn from these people, you learn kind of how to behave at the games. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Like I was 17 when I had my first access
into a game. Which is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, like, thanks. But yeah, like it's like the weirdest thing. Like as soon as I walk in, I walk by and like Keith Jones like walks by and says hi.
Exactly.
Like, who would expect that? You know what I mean? It's just like the weirdest thing. Like I remember 2 years ago when I had first started doing this full time. I remember literally watching Yariv on the perch at the skate zone, and I was like, I know this guy. I've seen this guy before. And now I work with him and do a show with him. Like, it's just the weirdest thing. So yeah, I mean, and just one thing I wanted to add to the Dinoye, I think when he got drafted by the Flyers, I think all that confidence started last year. It added to it. He comes in, obviously he had the surgery in the offseason and stuff, but I think from his camp and how good he looked, and then obviously getting the game, it's like he got drafted, he goes back to that, goes back to junior with that in his pocket, then he signs his ELC, and things like that. And then, yeah, I mean, he goes back and then he has the game in his pocket as well. And he looked very good in that game. If I'm being honest with you, he had a couple good chances and he created some offense and all that stuff. But he's definitely a guy that I could see getting, used in the organization in Lehigh Valley and things like that. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to bring here in the years to come.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, one thing.
Yeah, please. I was going to ask if you wanted to add anything.
Well, yeah, I think to kind of go along what both of you guys are saying is this whole media access and opportunity. Whenever, and I've said this before, but whenever you walk into a rink, I'm always learning something, and I always try to pick the brains of everybody, of those willing to share, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you grow from sharing and listening and learning. You try to surround yourself with people, especially in the hockey world, which is a very, very small world. You try to be as honest and upfront with as many people or with everyone as you can. And, based on what you guys are saying about opportunity, I've met some amazing people through the game of hockey all along, all the way through. But you always have those trusted allies that you can trust, and with anything, and that they're honest and transparent. And those select few are very, very important. And you're always willing to grasp what they have to offer because it's so valuable. And every organization, every select people are there within the organization. I think it's phenomenal that you've been given access to cover the Flyers. But trust goes a long, long way. So when you go and you show up at a rink, they know that they can trust you, right?
I would agree.
It's going to be honest. It's going to be upfront. You're going to ask the tough questions, but okay, like you said off the top of the show, there's going to be a positive element to that. Sure, there's going to be some good. There's going to be some bad at times, but it's critical that you build that foundation of trust, especially in the hockey world today.
Yeah, well said, especially in the internet world today, and the lack thereof in general. All right, anything we want to add to Elliot's story? I mean, I think you did a great job of breaking them down, but anything else you want to ask, Chris, or before we move on?
No, I think that was perfect.
Cool. All right, so we're going to get into this a little bit, Craig, and I know that you're obviously more of a general Flyers fan, so I'm going to fill you in a little bit just to kind of go through the Flyers' current lineup. So we wanted to talk about the Flyers versus the Canucks game a little bit. I know obviously you're familiar with Canucks as a team. I'll just go through the line and then, we can talk about it briefly, and then we'll get into, the upcoming battle with Seattle. And then I think we want to talk about a little bit about Morgan Frost here in between as well.
Yeah.
So real quick, I'll just name the lines. And then Chris, I don't know if you want to do a quick recap of the game. We can just do it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
So top lines, and Craig, this is just to fill you in a little bit. And
that's fine. Yep.
So Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny are top line. Second line, Joel Farabee, Derek Brassard, Cam Atkinson. Third line, Lindblom, Oscar Lindblom, Scott Lawton, James Van Riemsdyk on the right side, which is new. And then we have newcomer Max Willman. And again, these are the lines of practice from today as well. Max Willman, Nate Thompson, and Nicholas Aube-Kubel as the fourth. Top pairing is Provorov Ellis, Sanheim, Braun is the second pairing. And this is the lines from last night. Yandel and Sealer, or the other night, sorry. Yandel and Sealer, the third pairing, but now Ristolainen is slated to come back tentatively. Sealer was sent back to the AHL. And Ristolainen is now playing with Yandel on the third pairing, which is surprising because he was playing with Sanheim the entire preseason, but obviously maybe because of injury, they're kind of easing him in their back slowly.
Yeah, that'll change. He'll be up there. But I think the acquisition of Keith Yandel is it's going
under the radar, right?
It is under the radar, and I think it's a great pickup. I think, we talk about value. There's value there, and I know Flyers fans are going to say, well, he doesn't defend well enough. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. That's a negative take.
And,
right.
And as of right now, he's immensely helped their power play.
Well, yes, of course. And his puck moving ability, in a one-on-one situation down low, is he going to hurt you? Probably not. He's going to be at this stage.
He's
of
very
his
aggressive
career,
one-on-one.
Well, exactly. And then he'll contain, right? He's got a great stick, offensive, defensive, whatever, right? So, I think it's just a great pickup. So sorry.
No, it's perfect. And I think it's well said. He had a big impact on the game last game. I actually was covering the game, and we were both at the game. Chris was there as well.
Yeah.
But he was, in my opinion, didn't have a perfect game at all. I wouldn't say the Flyers didn't in general, but he was noticeable all throughout the game, especially offensively.
His breakouts were good as well. Yeah,
definitely. And his effectiveness on the top unit has now made the Flyers' second unit
better.
Very good. And that was a humongous issue for us last year. They were, I don't want to say useless, but they had zero impact on the game almost every night.
Yeah. Well, that provides balance. When you
yes, exactly.
When you fit guys in to your lineup, especially on the back end, right? It's all about balance and minutes played, right? You look at a Keith Yandel at this stage of his career, is he going to log you 22, 23 minutes a game? No. But if he can give you the best 18 minutes that he has, right, on a second or third pairing and play big power play minutes, you're going to be successful. It's all about slotting guys in, giving them a role, right, and setting them up for success. He can't log big minutes long-term for the organization. He's not going to do that. Give him his minutes, let him play. If you need 23 minutes out of him in one game, then you cut his minutes back down. At this stage, right, he's going to be very effective. And again, look at all the organizations out there. Ryan Suter in Dallas, right? Is he going to log big minutes? Probably. But they're going to cut his minutes, right, to where they were. And that's, was Chara effective in Washington last year? Yes, he was very effective in Washington because his minutes were down. His role was down because it provided balance for the back end. Yeah.
Well said. Chris, let me just cut you off for 1 second if you have anything to say. Let me just go real quick through the game itself. So first period, the Flyers were up 1-0. They definitely carried majority of the play, and everybody was really excited. And by the way, the Wells Fargo Center sounded amazing. Chris, I don't know if you felt that as well. It was the loudest I've heard it. And
that was the loudest game I ever went to in my life.
Yeah, no, I honestly think that's no joke. It was the loudest I've heard the Flyer Stadium in my life.
That was the second game I ever went to that was a sellout, and that game before was Game 4 of the 2018 series against Pittsburgh.
It was like a playoff
first
game.
Round. Yeah,
and they got
shut out. Yeah,
yeah, and people were ready to watch hockey. I know that much. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I'm glad you could echo that because I thought I was going crazy. I'm like, why is it so loud? I was like, you are freaking out.
I went bananas when Drew tied it. Like,
yeah, Yes. Well,
unbelievably.
let me say let me get this out so we can talk about it. So first period, Flyers do really well. Actually, they completely outplay Vancouver. They go up 1-0. Second period, everything kind of goes to hell for the Flyers a little bit. Just endless amount of penalties. Provorov takes a delay. Yeah, the delay a game. Hart gives up a couple bad ones in my opinion. Didn't have the worst game and definitely had a strong first period. Not a great second period, but had a very good third, and a better and a very good
uneven game.
Yes, that's a
He
good way of
wasn't
putting
tested
it.
in the first.
Yeah, and the third
Second, he got a lot of shots.
Yeah, overtime he did great.
He was great in overtime.
Yeah, and except for the shootout, I guess he lost, but it wasn't necessarily his fault. They were good moves.
It's a skills competition. The shootout is terrible.
Exactly. So the Flyers don't do well. They go down 4-2 at the end of the second. Kind of lose all of their momentum. They gave up 4 goals. Was it 4 goals in the second? Let me make sure I'm saying
4
that
goals
right.
in the second. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 4 goals. Yeah. The Flyers essentially have to pick it up from there. The third period was not great to start. It was relatively quiet, but the Flyers didn't give up. To their credit, slowly chipped away. Got 2 in late. One on a draw by Travis Konechny where they scored right off the power play. A good, really nice goal by Travis Konechny just to be in the right place, right time, and just to play hard, play physical, draw the call, and then score the goal. And then, the beauty at the end, this ridiculous off-the-board pass by Sean Couturier.
Set play.
Yeah, just gorgeous pass. Giroux right off the side of the net, top shelf, ties the game with, I think it was it a minute left in the game? Minute and a half?
Yeah, it was 2 goals and maybe 40-something seconds.
Yeah,
maybe 50.
Yeah, it was like nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They scored 6 seconds into that power play. So it wasn't long after that where they tied it.
Yeah, it was fantastic to see. And at that point, the building is going crazy. Flyers going to overtime. They get hemmed in their own zone for a while just because more of the way the benches are set up. It was, a couple opportunities, but Hart stood on his head there. And then in the shootout, Vancouver goes 2 for 2. Flyers go 0 for 2, even though it looked like Claude Giroux scored initially on his shot.
Yeah.
But he was denied by Demko, who had, in my opinion, had a good game. He definitely.
If it wasn't for him in that first period, that would have been a completely different game.
I completely agree. So, and Vancouver, I think, they held themselves well.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I think just
want to add anything else?
Me?
Oh, yeah. Did you want to add anything else? Sorry, because
I feel like from the beginning of the game, from the video that got everybody going from the beginning, and then the player introductions, that had me going. And I can't say anything for whoever else was in that building, but I was going absolutely ballistic. And I obviously I was texting you the entire time. And I thought it was funny. You were telling me to calm down. I'm like, dude, I'm not calming down. This is the first home opener I've ever been to in my life.
I'm getting older, dude. It just is what it is.
But I was so excited, so pumped, and I felt like just from everything they had going on from the start of the game, they had a couple good hits early on. They had a really good shift from the first line. I feel like the first line kind of set the tone in that game in the first period. Yeah. They had that good shift. Provorov had missed a one-timer like right from the high slot, and then it all just kind of started from there. Then they drew a penalty. They got the goal. They went at 1-0. And I felt like the first period was a very good period of how they wanted to start the season. I was just worried about the second period at that point then, because I'm thinking to myself, all right, now this gives Vancouver a rest and they're able to kind of get their heads screwed on straight here and kind of come back into this game. And that's exactly what they did. And as you mentioned, they got the 4 goals, and the Flyers were pretty much lifeless at that point. So, when they were able to come back, and again, out of all of that game, there were obviously positives and negatives. I think the one thing is there's still 81 more of these things for the rest of the season. So it wasn't the end. And 2, it's, for them to play lifeless for a lot of it and to still get a point out of it is perfect. And I think the one thing that I love is just their comeback. We saw that a good amount last year. As much as we could for how bad of the season it was, but we saw it at times, and we saw them come back in games and tie it late and all that stuff. So it's probably not the way that they imagine they'd start off the season, having to come back and tie the game late in the last minute there, but nevertheless they were at least able to get a point out of it. And it's funny. I feel like a lot of people were talking about that whole conversation of should they get rid of the shootout or extend 3-on-3 or what they do there in that situation. I felt like I saw that a good amount on Twitter after the game, but overall, I thought it was a pretty solid first game.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a solid first game. Let me just go through the stats real quick here, just from the Flyers side. So Atkinson had a goal. He was a +2. Couturier was even, but had 2 assists. Farabee, a goal and assist, +2. By the way, I think Joel Farabee's a superstar. I've mentioned that over and over again. I'm joking around, but I definitely do. Claude Giroux had a goal, 8 shots on net, by the way, which I did not notice, which is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen Giroux shoot that much.
I didn't notice that either.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Travis Konechny, 1 goal, 4 shots. Scott Lawton was a plus. Thompson -1, Willman -1, Van Riemsdyk +1, had 4 shots. Farabee also played over 17 minutes that night.
Well, and that's what I'm going to stop you right there.
Step on in.
Time on ice, right?
I can go
time on ice. That's important to me in the first 5 or 6 games because it's a blueprint to what the coaching staff want to see, right? From their hockey club, right? So, we touched on it with Yandel, but time on ice right now, I know it goes into overtime and all this stuff, but right, it's balance, but you're going to see as the season goes on, those top end players, how much ice time, what situations are they going to play in? And now with a more balanced attack on the back end, you're gonna see that pay dividends. You
Absolutely.
really, really are. And how many games are they going to give Hart right away? Are they going, back and forth and back and forth?
He's playing again tomorrow, just to your point.
Exactly. So you give them the net. Okay, here you go. You've worked on your craft all summer long. We know the type of season you had. It's going to be a bounce back year. There might be some ups and downs. Okay, but let's give the kid the net and see where that'll go. Right. So again, you can see the cultural aspect of AV and how he's going to control and really kind of move the pieces around. And I think that's really important right now, is to give your top end guys that ice time. And we talked about it before, but the trust in your bottom 6, how much you're going to play them, when you're going to play them, and you can tell a lot right now by teams and how much they're playing, especially on the road, right? You can learn a lot by their tendencies. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Let me add to that point, because I think it's a great point, Craig. Max Willman, Nate Thompson. Nate Thompson had 12 minutes, which is not surprising, but Max Willman and Nicolas Aube-Kubel both had under 10 minutes that night. Now the Flyers were down, but we were talking about Brown and we were talking about McEwen. I mean, you look at the minutes played there, you can see that the coaching staff wants a little more depth in their bottom line.
Exactly. So if you give Zach McEwen 10 to 12 minutes a game, right, you're going to see what he can do. If you're going to limit his ice time, like Green did in Van City.
How many minutes did he get there?
Again, not a stats guy, but he was down to 6 minutes, 8 minutes.
That's not enough.
That's not enough. Like you're 6'3", 205 pounds. You're a truck, right? You gotta play them.
Great teams roll 4 lines.
Yes.
If you're compensating too much, which happens from game to game. And again, that's why I wanted to preface the Flyers were down. So I think that they were probably relying on their top 9 to score goals.
Yes.
It felt like that first line was out there for a very good majority of that third period.
Absolutely. Sean Couturier played 5 seconds short of 22 minutes. So that's
a lot.
Giroux played 19 minutes. And then who else? Where's Konechny? Konechny had 17 minutes as well. I do want to point something out, Craig. Again, I'm harping on Joel Farabee. They talk about all these other young players around the league, like Jack Hughes, who's a former teammate of his. He, in my opinion, belongs in the same conversation with all of them. I don't think, and I was telling Chris, I don't think most people are aware of it. I think it's going to be one of those things where like, oh, where did Joel Farabee come from? But he already has a goal and assist in the first game. You can see he's one of the most used forwards on the Flyers lineup. He is 20 years old, and in the preseason, he was our best, like pretty much our best goal scorer in the preseason. So this is a guy who finished off being our best goal scorer last year and is now, in my opinion, hitting another level. So, keep an eye out for Joel Farabee because this kid, in my opinion, is a superstar. I don't think he's just a regular, really good young player. I think he's a potential best player on the team, with Sean Couturier, like that type of guy, top line guy. Like, I don't know if he's going to be David Pasternak, but I can see him, hitting a kind of level where he could be a 40-goal scorer in the NHL. At least this is my opinion.
So over the next 5 games, if I'm a Flyers fan, over the next 5 games, I'm charting his time on ice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm charting his situational play.
And you will see him used in all situations.
Right. So I'll let you in on a little, and you guys all probably already know this, but when you're watching games, right, when you're watching and you're studying the games and you know your team, you know your organization inside and out, okay, put the coach's hat on, right? There's 7 minutes left in the first period. Your second line's, right? Play the matchup game. What line would you put out next? Right? Do you double shift your top guys? Like, and you're saying, well, Craig, what's that got to do with it? You're going to watch young players bloom, right? When they're given that situational play. You're going to watch them grow. You're going to watch them excel because they're set, right? The coach is setting them up for success. So put your coach's hat on. Next game you're watching, put your coach's hat on. And who would you go to, right? Rely on your instincts, right? And you make the next call. I think that's really, really important. And a lot of hockey fans don't necessarily go to that level, right? And I think that's really, really a neat kind of perspective on, okay, well, who would you put out and why, right? Why would you put that line out? And you take a step back and say, well, I would have played that line against this line at this time, right? The next 5 games, and 5 games, again, talking to an NHL scout last week, their organization, I'm not going to say which one, they want to get off to a fantastic start because, like he said, if you start 1-4 or 0-5 or 1-2-2, you're behind the 8 ball right off the get-go. So you're going to see coaches not ease into the season like they used to, right? They give their guys 10 games to get going. That's not the case in this day and age. So chart their ice time, chart his situational play, and you're going to see, okay, well, this kid's going places, right? Like, again, your third line. Chart your third line time on ice and see the matchup, right? That matchup is going to vary from game in, game out. And if it doesn't, then why, right? And when you go and preaching to the choir here, but when you go and you have AV, right? Ask him that question, right? Ask him, what's the matchup game, all right? I saw this third line here. They only had this much time on ice tonight. What's your thought on that? Were they going, and were you happy with it? And what player, that line, which player weren't you happy with given his time on ice and his effectiveness in that situation? And why did you play him in that situation? I think that's a fair question.
Fair enough. All right, let me go to the defense real quick for the stats. So Justin Braun, he had just under 16 minutes, no points, 1 shot. Ryan Ellis had an assist, +2, 3 shots. He played just over 22 minutes. Ivan Provorov, +2, 1 assist, 2 shots on net, 4 block shots, just every category. Played just over 24 minutes, usual night for him. Travis Sanheim was a -1. He played 18 minutes and 33 seconds. He also had 3 block shots. Same with Ellis and Braun. I should have brought that up as well. Nick Seeler had 3 block shots. He played 10 minutes and 45 seconds. And I think this is a lot reflective of the Flyers' poor, the fact that they're penalty killing a lot and then a lot of power plays in this game. And then Keith Yandel had 2 assists. He was a -1 with 2 shots on net, no block shots, but he played 12 minutes and 35 seconds, which I think is going to be on the lower end for him. I'm actually reading the wrong numbers. I'm sorry. You should have cut me off, Chris, because I don't know if you were looking at these. Sorry, Braun played 18 minutes. Ellis played. Yeah, sorry, I'm an idiot because these numbers are actually ridiculous. Braun played 18 minutes. Ellis played 28 minutes and 20 seconds. Provorov played 29 minutes and 23 seconds.
What were you looking at? The power play?
Even strength.
Even strength.
I was looking at even strength. Sanheim played 20 minutes and 45 seconds. Seeler played 11 minutes and 39 seconds. And Yandel played 14 minutes and 47 seconds. So you can see the Flyers' reliance on their top pairing. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and every team, really, they're going to log big minutes, right?
I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is the best top pairing the Flyers have had, definitely since Niskanen, Matt Niskanen. But Provorov has never had a partner like Ryan Ellis before. No. We've never had anybody on that caliber playing with him so far.
And your thoughts on Ellis?
I think he's looked fantastic. I mean, I think he's taken a couple bad penalties, but outside of that, I mean, that's something I could say about a bunch of guys on this team. But outside of that, I mean, it's very noticeable. He's very aggressive offensively, shoots a lot, super confident.
I think the penalties, that was that just the one game? The game where he had the 2?
Yeah. But he's just aggressive guy. So he's gonna take penalties. Like, it's gonna happen. But to your point, he did not get half the game. And it seems like the Flyers are gonna rely on him heavily. I think it boosts Provorov's performance considerably. Like, you can see Provorov is just skating different. He's got less to worry about. Before, he always had to make up for whoever he was playing with. Now it's like Ellis is like just as good. So literally the two of them just go out there and just do their thing. So I think it's an amazing thing to see. And I'm excited to see how Ristolainen fits in there, because I think I think when you see somebody like Taylor Hall put up 4 goals in Buffalo, and then you see him go to Boston, it's like there's something wrong with that organization, right? Or there was. I know they have a good start so far. Got a new coach, so maybe things are getting better there. But there was something wrong there. Like, you're talking about Ryan O'Reilly started hating playing hockey there and then goes and wins an MVP. Like, there's something wrong with that locker room, or there was. So I don't want to assume that Ristolainen's game can't elevate. Like, I see him being a big part of this game, or this team.
To be honest with you, I think it's a massive pickup. Guy's a monster, right? So he's a phenomenal player, and the Flyers are going to love him. You guys, I'm telling you, and
I think so too.
That's the type of player where you build around, right? I don't want to bring up Myers. I was shocked. I was shocked. I interviewed him. I talked to him. I wrote an article, and then 2 days later he's traded. I'm like, what? Like that. So it was going to be a big bounce back year for Phil. I didn't understand it. I know the type of player Ellis is. It's a organizational philosophy on match up and finding a guy a complementary number 2 that you can play with your top end guys. So I thought that was Phil Myers. That was my opinion on that. But I think it's, you look around and, we've talked about this time and time again, but you look around the league, you're always looking for that complement on your top pair. And if you can't find it, it's going to hurt the progression, and you're going to regress a lot. as a hockey club, because it just throws off the balance that we already talked about with your D pairings.
Yeah.
Like Charlie McAvoy needs a defenseman that can play with him, and that's what they've gone out and acquired that, right? So, it was Chara at first. You need a complimentary guy, especially for a young player.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And Chris, your dad here said that he's not playing tomorrow, or Ristolainen is not. I think the rumor is that he's not. Not. It's official.
He's not. AV had said it. He's still not quite ready. So
Okay.
I know they sent down Sealer this morning.
Yeah.
That was actually, I got a text from Amadeo, who's my other podcast partner. He said that Sealer got sent down. He texted me that yesterday. Then the tweet was actually official this morning. Then AV said that Sealer is going to come and get called up again tomorrow, and he's going to come up and play on the right side with Yandel, just like the other nights.
Okay.
It's most likely going to be the exact same lineup.
That explains the lines of practice then. Why they didn't put Risto with Sanheim.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunate, but
so
I think the Flyers have another gap in between. I was going to say they have another gap in between.
And then the other thing is too was, when will we see Jones? Because you have, you play tomorrow, and then you have practice Tuesday, you have a game Wednesday, and then you're off Thursday, Friday. You don't play until Saturday. So do you just start Hart for the homestand, or do we see Jones at some point, or what?
They'll get Jones in there, but I think it depends on how Hart plays.
Yeah, I do too.
Let me ask you something, Craig. What do you think about Martin Jones, about his tenure? Because everybody's very, and I understand it, but
they're all
everybody's very hesitant about it because his numbers were essentially exactly the same for the last 3 years. But Chris, I think you agree with me on this, but my attitude is a goaltender a lot of times is a reflection of the defense in front of him. And I don't mean just the defenseman. I mean the team, the way the team plays in front of them. And you can make any goalie look mediocre. I'm not saying he's like a legitimate top guy in the league, but I definitely think he's an adequate backup, especially if you were playing 60-some games a night and now you're going to 30 games, or 60-some games a year and now you're going to 30 games. What do you think about Martin Jones?
I think he's a solid netminder. I think he can steal you games, right? And he's everything that you want in a backup. Reliable, right? Tons of experience, a pro, a true pro, right? Go in there and shut the door. And that's what they need right now. And is it a 1A, 1B type scenario if Hart starts struggling? Maybe. But can he take the net from you and run with it for 2 or 3 games in a row? Sure he can. Of course he can. Yeah. Boomer says it right there.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. It's just,
I think so too.
You look at Halak.
Just give him a chance.
Give him a chance. Give him an opportunity. You look at Halak, right? Was Halak good in the bubble? When Rask went home, left the bubble, was Halak good? No, not very good. Was he good that season? Yes. Was he good next season? Yes. Right? So
I feel like the bubble, a lot of guys weren't good.
Well, no.
Konechny wasn't great. I mean, Konechny didn't even score.
Well, net minding, okay?
Yeah.
Goaltending in general, the last few years, boys, they haven't practiced. There's no...
It was a mess.
It was a mess. So now you're back to some sort of normacy. And let's face it, last year you're playing every other day. You can't get into a flow. Oh, well, yes, you can, Craig. You're playing all the time. No. Rest. These guys need rest, right? So there's no time to recoup, right? You're back. You're shell shocked, right? And especially if you have a long night.
Fundamentals either.
Technique, feeling out the situation. If you're struggling a little bit, no, you got to go back out. So I think this year you're going to see better net minding. I know that there's been a lot of overtime games and stuff like that to start the season, it is what it is. I don't necessarily like shootouts, but it's right now. I think you're going to see some good goaltending. I think Jones is that type of a guy that can go in and shut the door, when you need him. And I think that's all you need in a backup. I think he's serviceable. He'll be fine.
Well said. Chris, you want to add anything into that?
The only thing that I'm curious about is how they split the games with him and Hart. if they're going to use him for half, or if Hart gets a good majority, or what. Because it seems like when the observation in the beginning of the last couple of years with Hart and Elliott was Hart would get a lot of the games, but as the season went on, it was kind of like half and half. And then if injuries came into play and such, but I'm curious to see how they do that, because Fletcher did have some kind of a different aspect on it because of the way the schedule, and he talked about that, and obviously with the Olympics and everything. So I'm just curious to see how they do that. But I personally think there were better options out there, but I'm not going to sit here and whine about it, a game into the season. I think Jones is going to be fine.
I think it might be a little too early to predict, how many games goaltenders are going to get.
And that's the thing. I'm like half and half, because again, with the schedule, and obviously you can't predict injury and all that stuff too.
Right. So you look north to Montreal, right? Jake Allen and the Carey Price situation. And just to touch on that, I think it showed tremendous courage what Price has done. And hopefully that brings more awareness to mental health in the game. And I think it's going to. You look at Jake Allen, right? Jake Allen was that number one guy, and then went to a backup role. I think Martin Jones, I think Jake Allen's probably a lot better goaltender than Martin Jones, but Martin Jones has been there and done that. So he's the type of guy that can go in and lock things down if need be. But, Carter Hart is your guy. He's your number one. If you're AV, you're going to him at least 85 to 90% of, or 85 or 82% of the time, right? If things are going well, you go, percentage more.
I think that's well said. And to Chris's point, Fletcher did say that he saw this season being more of like a 60-40 split for Hart. I do think that there's a potential if Hart comes in and he plays the way he's supposed to play. I think they're going to overplay him.
They're going to have to if they want to make some noise.
His ceiling is so high that if he plays the way he did 2 years ago, and you're a coach and you want to win, I mean, it's going to be a really hard time for you to bench him. Yeah. Especially,
especially with how tight the Flyers division is. Too.
Exactly.
You have to win games, and you need points.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have Hart in there
almost every time.
Right.
Almost every.
If Hart could physically play all 82, then sure.
Then that would be cool. So let's talk about the next game here, actually, and then we'll wrap up with Frost. So Flyers go against Seattle tomorrow. Both Chris and I will be at the game. I'll be there covering it. Chris will be there covering it, but also having fun. He got tickets. And then I don't know when you're going to your next game for Flyers Nitty Gritty, but I think you're
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. So, and you got your own pass at this point too. Yeah. But again,
it's not games though, but
it's okay. You'll get there too. It's first step. Right. But you'll be going there for Flyers Nitty Gritty. But let's talk about Seattle. This is their third game. They're 1-1. Flyers are obviously the Flyers obviously only have their one game loss in overtime. It should be an interesting game. I personally expect the Flyers to come out with a win here. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think there are any easy games in the NHL. There maybe are one or two teams, especially at this point. Like maybe down the line if teams have a bunch of injuries and whatnot. But there really are no easy games. It's never
easy though.
Yeah, there's just no easy games. Nobody's a pushover in this league. You can see even Buffalo has started well. And, how many players are they missing? They're missing their best player. So, and Penguins missing their two best players, keep
the
beating
Red Wings,
everybody.
It looked well.
Yeah, exactly. Almost beat Tampa Bay.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. But yeah, the Flyers go up against Seattle. Seattle's going to be a pretty tough team to play against. Probably Dave Hackstall is coming back to Philly. And I said this to everybody, and I'm sure people laughed at me when I said it, but when he was fired, everybody was like, oh, he's a terrible coach. I was like, he will be a head coach in the NHL again. I was like, you guys call these guys losers and that they suck and that they're dumb. I go, but every single coach that gets fired here goes and has success somewhere else. It's not a big deal to lose your job at the highest level. It's really not. It's not a reflection of your ability or whether you're smart or you understand the game. It's literally the highest expectation league. Talented people get fired all the time, even in normal life. But at the NHL level, even then some. So Dave Hackstall did coach Toronto's defense, which from what I understand, they had the best. Oh, it was their D.
It was power play. He was their power play coach.
I think he coached their defense.
It was PP. It was power play.
Steve Dangle podcast. That's what they were talking about. That
Did
he improved their D.
Was
Maybe
it
I
last
remember
year?
incorrectly
'Cause
though.
I know the one year he did do the power play.
Okay, maybe I remember incorrectly though. So I'm not gonna argue with you because I don't know Toronto that well. But actually, double check it if you can.
I am.
But I do know that he had success in Toronto. Then now he got selected for Seattle. I think people were surprised about that, but obviously 1-1. Craig, let's open up to you while Chris is looking this up, and then Chris, you obviously take it over. What do you think about like Seattle in general? How do you think the Flyers match up?
Well, I think Seattle's done a good job building their organization, and I think they're going to really come on strong. I think there's going to be some tough nights for them, obviously, as a new franchise. But you look at the Vegas Knights and you see what Cinderella run they went on, building a team from scratch, right? And you can really target in your wants and your needs. So right now, if I'm Philadelphia and I'm AV, I'm getting that team as ready as I can because I know Seattle has nothing to lose. And that's when teams have nothing to lose, they're dangerous, right? So, you got to tighten up in certain areas. And that's when, coaches say, well, yeah, we've looked at the tape. We've done this, we've done that. You tweak certain things. And whenever you're prepping for a team, you do your pre-scout, you really zero in on who you're going to try to, contain, right? Does Seattle have any game breakers? Okay, well, we've got to do a good job here, but we really, game 2, we've got to worry about ourselves, right? We have to be more efficient on breakouts. We have to, right, time, offensive zone time, right? Shots. Are we getting to the middle? Are we aggressive? All those things, the intangibles that you need to be successful. So, pre-scout, do your pre-scout, rely on and play the shit out of your top 6. I think you'll be okay.
I think that's well said. And you're right. They're a team without nothing to lose in a way, right? Because it's like the expectations are unknown at this point.
Yeah.
Chris, did you see the thing about Hackstall? Boomer says his power play. I see a thing here. It says he was focused on the defense and penalty kill. But maybe they changed it.
Yeah, I think because I remember
he
started on the power play.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. I think he started off with defense and penalty kill and then did the power play.
I think the 2019-20 season he was power play.
Okay.
He was penalty kill.
Both of us are right then, and that's the problem.
Well, they brought Manny Malhotra in as well.
Okay, and he would coach the D. Right?
Yes,
that was his specialty.
It was. He was a defensive forward, great two-way guy.
Yeah.
But I think he also had some
power play time.
Yes.
This is all
crazy. It's crazy.
This is all their fault.
And hey, that's what Leafland's all about, right? Holy jumpins. Confusion.
I was gonna actually say that. I was like, such a reflection of the Leafs. Can't even figure out who what their coaches do. All right, Chris.
Where did you find that at? Because I couldn't even find anything on what he did.
Found here on Yahoo Sports.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Maybe I'm reading it wrong too, though. But check it out. But what are your thoughts on Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're going to be a lot better than people think. I actually have them making the playoffs.
Wow.
I think
that
division's weak. I think out of Vegas and Edmonton, you could literally put any team in any order, and I could be like, yeah, sure, because it's such a weak division. One, I love Grubauer. I think he's fantastic for them. I think if he can come in, well, I shouldn't even just say Grubauer. Their goaltending team, and I think Drieger is fantastic as well. I think that's perfect for them because again, that's a division that has still some good young talent, and obviously goaltending is a huge position, and they get a recent Vezina winner there too. So again, I think that's perfect. I don't know too much about Hackstall. Obviously, he's changed. he was kind of the coach of what I grew up with as a Flyers fan. So a lot of things that I had remembered of what the Flyers used to do was like that, like kind of gritty, kind of forecheck, kind of like point shots kind of style. That's a lot of what I noticed from Seattle in the opening night game that I watched against Vegas. I caught the last like maybe 5 minutes of their first official win against Nashville. And that was about it. So I personally think the Flyers are going to win. I feel like it's going to be one of them games where if the Flyers just come out and play their game and obviously do the things that they have to do, I think they'll be okay. But overall, I think, obviously Seattle's coming in to do their job and win the game too. And I feel like it's going to be a good test for the Flyers too, because it's kind of that new, again, obviously Yariv pointed out they don't necessarily have an expectation yet. So you kind of just want to come in and do your job, win the game, and move on. And the Flyers only faced them 2 times this year, and that's mostly with all the teams out in Western Canada and things like that. But I feel like it's gonna be a good game.
Cool. Yeah, I think so too. It's a game I expect the Flyers to win, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think they'll be hungry. I think they kind of feel like they lost out on a point against Vancouver. Because they came out strong in the beginning, and that was their issue last year. So to come out strong and then to kind of blow it in the second period because of team mistakes, you don't want to see it. All right, well let's wrap into our last topic of the night. Chris, I'm going to let you lead this topic because I know you watched majority of this game, and this is something you brought up to me. But Morgan Frost was playing tonight in the Lehigh Valley game.
Mm-hmm.
From what you explained to me, he was
benched
in the third period.
Yeah,
wasn't put out there in overtime for a 6-on-3, where they had a chance.
Well, it wasn't even overtime. It was
third period
regulation. They had just gotten a goal, and all right. So I'm going to say it from the beginning, just so the whole thing makes sense. The game wasn't necessarily great. It was like a really like sluggish, just kind of. It was just kind of boring. And I don't want to say it was boring, but it just seemed that way. The first couple minutes, the shots were like 7-1 Hershey. And I'm like, this isn't good. They got to start getting this going here. And the offense was coming. They were getting their chances. And as the period went on, they had a bunch of power plays. I mean, Frost was just invisible. I mean, I really didn't see much from him. And it wasn't just him. It was other guys. I thought Gary Mayhew was the Phantom's best forward. And that's saying something. And it's nothing against Mayhew. It's more of the other guys because it's not who you'd expect. I mean, your review said it to me earlier. He should be lighting it up down there. And he did for the one game. But then again, it's days like today where he's invisible. And this is what we saw in the preseason as well with the Flyers. So around like the 12-minute mark, I got a text from one of my buddies. And he's like, Frost hasn't been out there in like the last like 2 shifts with his line. He was with Garrett Wilson and Forster. He was centering that line, the Phantom's first line, and he wasn't out there. Now, I didn't pay too much mind to it because I was kind of, I was doing other things as well, and I was also, Linus Sandin got hit with a puck up high, and he went off. He was bleeding and everything. They had to clean up some blood and stuff. So I was thinking just maybe because of the injury, they had switched around the lines a little bit, whatever. But then it was like, Bill Meltzer was tweeting about it then Tony Androkidis was tweeting about it, and then other people started talking about it. I'm like, okay, he's benched. Then I noticed as the play went by and the way the camera was, he was sitting behind Ian LaPerriere, Phantom's head coach. He was behind Lappy on the bench. So I'm like, okay. Well, I'm like, all right, well, it makes sense because he's, again, I agree with it to an extent, but I do think it was overkill. Here's why. You have a 6-on-3. You just get a goal off of a pinch. Great play by Cam York, too. He set up Mayhew for a goal, pinched, sets it down low, tap in. 2-1, couple minutes left. And they get a power play. And then they get a 5-on-3. It was a delay of game. It's such an unlucky penalty at that point of the game. Late, you're up by 1 at home on a Sunday afternoon, and you get a delay of game penalty and make it a 5-on-3. Then they pull the goaltender. I'm like, okay. I know Frost hasn't necessarily, done much this game, but I thought it was overkill because you still want to win. You still have to win. And I think at that point, he's got to be put out there. I mean, he's your best player. If you're trying to score a goal, and you could even send the message more, Bill Meltzer had said this on Twitter, like they could have sent him out there to tie the game and then benched him in overtime. That could have been done as well. So I kind of thought it was overkill. I think a lot of people are looking at it now like it doesn't necessarily, I'm going to bring up this quote because this is from head coach Ian LaPerriere as well. And when he was, asked about it from Tony and things like that, as I'm trying to pull it up on my phone, here, let me figure this out. Here it is. He said he wants more out of him. He's one of my leaders, one of the guys I'm relying on to create offense, but he has to play better defense to create that offense. Then Bill Meltzer had quote tweeted it and said, not sure what defense has to do with a 6-1-3 down by 1 goal late, but I do think he needs to move his feet, get more touches, win more 50-50 pucks, and win more faceoffs. That is exactly what I had said too, and we've all pretty much agreed on from the Flyers preseason and things like that. He needs to be involved to where I don't have to legitimately say it when I notice him. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to just freely notice him as I'm watching the game and not have to worry about like, is he involved? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? Is he winning faceoffs and puck battles and all that stuff?
Can I cut you off there for a second, Chris? And Craig, I want you to respond to what I'm going to say because Chris already knows my opinion, so I'm kind of repeating this to you, Chris, because you already know. Yeah, so, in my opinion, I understand where everybody's head is at. Okay, and my second opinion is, or my first opinion is that this is the AHL. This is our development league. Ian LaPerriere was brought in there to develop young players, not to win games first. This is why Scott Gordon is no longer coach of the Phantoms and why Ian LaPerriere is now coach of the Phantoms. I think if you want to get the most out of Frost, not to win the game, you have to make a serious statement to him. And it's like, even if I need you, I'm still not going to use you because there is no amount of offense that you can play that is going to make up for the defense or for the little things that you're not doing. And again, I don't think it's a reflection of where they think his potential is. I think it's Lappy looking to be like, hey, I'd rather lose that game and teach you a lesson. And I think that's where I think he's coming from. I want to teach you a lesson. And probably everybody else on the team too. That I will bench the best player on this team if he does not bring it to me, even if we need him. In the NHL, I don't think that happens. To everybody's point. In the NHL, I don't think that happens. I think he's put out there. And then they go for the win. They give him a talk in the background and blah, blah, blah. I think in this case, it was like, you're not getting on that ice unless you're giving it to me. And I think that's the development aspect. Now, maybe I'm being too harsh, but Craig, I want to hear your opinion on this because I think you're more experienced than Chris and I in this matter. And I want to hear like what you have to think about that type of scenario.
27th overall.
Yes.
2017. All right. So what do you want out of a player? That's a first round.
Top six forward.
Yeah. So there's a new coach, right? Talking to and sending a message to a player with 22 NHL games under his belt that right now, from a defensive standpoint, okay, when he says we want more out of him, that means, okay, is it character or is it effort? So what type of player, basically, and you guys know this, as a pro coach, what's the only thing that you can take away from a player is ice time to send a message. So message sent. Now it's up to the player, okay, to see how they respond. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. That's Lapierre's decision to make. That's an organizational, okay, perspective. But I'm looking at a player with 22 games experience at the National Hockey League level, if it's not good enough at this point, okay, there's a reason why he's down on the farm. And, you know, right now, it's what are you going to give us? And where do you see yourself fitting in right now? And, you know, I know it's early. I know it's a developmental league and all this stuff, but now's the time. That to me, reading that quote from Lapierre, that's a serious, right, message to send right now. And you don't, if he's your guy and if he's your first line center and you bench him, then message sent. We'll see what the player brings and how the player responds. But I'm surprised more benching doesn't happen, and when it does, especially in Boston, the media just goes crazy, right? And that's where Jake DeBrusk comes in, right? Another young player, underachieved. What type of player? And then the stories come out that, you know, he wasn't right mentally because of COVID. Couldn't hang out. Couldn't be a team guy. Had COVID. Took it, right? So what's going on? What's deeper? Is it the player or is it the person? What are they going to do to get to, okay, so Frost can excel and get to the level where he wants and where the organization want from him. Right now, if you're not moving your feet, winning more one-on-one puck battles, and the effort's not there, then how the hell you're going to be a top 6-4 at the National Hockey League level if you can't bring it every night in the A? So message is sent. I think this story is a developing story, and it's not going to go away. And if I was to cover the Flyers to the extent that both of you and the organization, I'd be making 2 phone calls, okay, very, very quickly, one to Lapierre and one to Frost. And I would be covering the story and watching the story develop over the next week and see how, you know, the interaction between in practice, how's the player practicing, and that's how I would, because this story is not going to go away, especially if up top. If up top gets some injuries, right now, who are they going to call on? Well, is he bringing the effort in practice? All right, has he moved on from the benching? At least now, ghost benching, I hate it. If you bench a player, you better damn well tell the player why you're benching them. All right? Because sure, you can send the message and you can send the message in the media and all that stuff, but you better damn well tell the player, okay, this is why I'm benching.
This is what I expect you to do
exactly
to get back on the ice.
Right.
100%
change this, change that.
Exactly. You want to play. It's all about communicating, guys. Like at this level with these kids and today's player, it's all about communication.
100%.
So if you're not talking and you're talking through the media, then you're the wrong guy for the job, especially in the American Hockey League. So are you going to coach him up or are you going to criticize him in public, right? So now, Frost, you look at his stats. Again, not a big stats guy. Maybe he was Gordon's guy, right? Maybe Gordon knew what buttons to push, right? New coach, new philosophy, new culture, wanting more defensive, accountability out of a player. Send the message, but now coach him up, right? You sent the message, you criticize him in the media. Okay, coach him up. That's your job. Do your job.
And I think that's very well said, Craig. And I do think that is what Lapierre will do. I'm pretty sure that's why he was brought in, because he literally was the advocate of that for the Flyers for the past few years.
Yeah.
So I think there was a big reason they wanted him down there. And to that point, I was thinking about this while you were talking. If he puts Frost back in, and let's say Frost scores the goal, okay, what lesson did Frost learn? He's like, well, I cannot do the little details. put me in a position to score, and then I'll score.
Yeah.
This way, he's like, you're not even being put in that position. Because at the NHL level, that's the reality, is that even if you are a scorer, if you don't do the little things, you're probably not going to be put in the position to score.
It doesn't matter what level, guys, of hockey. I'm scouting a midget game or U18, whatever the hell they call it. For me, it's always going to be midget. Anyway, midget AAA hockey. Guy takes a 2-minute cross-checking penalty. Cross-checked. Okay? It's you cross-checked him. Just go skate to the penalty box. This is last night. Just skate to the penalty box. Complexion of the game changed. He mouthed off. Okay? He mouthed off. Got an extra 2. The other team comes down, scores, take over. It changed the complexion of the game. Okay? Did they bench the kid? No. So what messages are you sending? What message are you sending a kid, a 16-year-old kid that takes a bad penalty to begin with and then mouths off? What message is sent?
Nothing.
Nothing. So, okay, well, he took a 4-minute penalty. Well, what's stopping me? If I don't like the call, I can mouth off too. I'm still going to play.
It's a culture thing, isn't it?
Yes,
You think it's
a
a
culture thing. Yes.
Yeah.
So you send the message, you stick to it, you stick to your guns. Let's hope the conversation was made. Okay, the player was told, this is what you need to work on. I've told you this. Now, okay, I'm going to be transparent with the media because I know it's going to be a story, because I know he's our first rounder from a few years back. He's a player. We need this, and this out of him. Okay, I'm transparent with the media. I'm transparent with the kid. Now it's time. Let's move forward and let's coach him up. And hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, agreed. Chris, you wanna add anything there?
I mean, if I'm looking at it, it's still developing with Frost, like you said, Craig. But I feel like as of now, it's time to next game. It's like the next game mentality for him. Like like, you know how you have the always level up thing? It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like just next game. And if he takes the bull by the horns, like somebody had put in the comments, I'm trying to find it.
Boomer, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If he just goes and, plays his game, and again, it's everything offensively is the offensive side of things is not what I'm worried about. We know we can score.
Right.
We know we can put up points. It's just like, I don't want to have to go into a game where I look at him and I'm looking for Frost, and I don't want to have to sit there and say to myself, I'm going to jot down every time I think he's into the play or I notice him. Like, I just want to be able to watch it and notice him like I normally would just watch his regular hockey game. You know what I mean? Where he's just involved and he's into the play like I know he can be.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people talk about the physical makeup of him and how, he's gotten bigger. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, same.
I understand that he's gotten bigger and he looks bigger. I can tell. I mean, when he walked in the issue, you could tell. Yeah, it's not the issue.
Tell me Elias Pettersson is a big guy. Like, give me a break.
Exactly. That's not the issue. It's the same thing when people like say like the guys are small, like Cole Caulfield. Like, I'm sorry, that's all I have to say. Frost, to me, it's the play off the puck, and it's also just him asserting himself physically. Like, I know he can be physical and hit guys, but I think a lot of people looked at it last year and they were like, "Oh, that injury he got," you know what I mean? And everybody was so worried about the injury. And I remember there were people that were saying that it was like a fluke injury and things like that, because the way that he got hurt was, he kind of went into the corner quick and he got hit at the same time, just for people who don't remember it. And I think if he can just, use the physical side to his advantage of what he's done and things like that, because what I personally saw from him was 3 different ways that he could play. And that was the first game he played, he was completely invisible. The second game, he was all over it, had offensive chances, created a couple scoring chances, looked very good. The other game after that, he was better defensively, not so good offensively. But was physical enough and was still inserted into the game. Now, the first game he goes down in preseason with the Phantoms, lights it up, puts up a couple points, and then this game he's invisible again. So every game he's played, he's had a different style to it, and he's played a different way. So I think just they want the consistency out of him, and that's kind of the message that I guess that they're sending, which I get, but it's just the aspect of the 6-on-3 with no, you need a goal. It's like
they're saying that the wins don't matter as much as the development.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't think you're wrong either, Chris. I understand why you're saying the things you're saying.
At 22, this is his final year of his entry level. It's time to see, like how many games are the Flyers going to give him down on the farm right now before you bring him up and to see, and okay, you're 22, we're going to move you. We're going to give you 30 games, and then we'll give you, if there's injuries and stuff like that, we'll bring you up. We still believe in you, but it's time to see what type of player you are, or are they going to package him in to, acquire another player potentially? It's at 22, but again, you have to look at the last season, couple years, right? From a developmental standpoint, and like you were saying, Chris, if there's injuries there too, then you got to give him a little bit of time,
right? Especially when he had a whole season off,
right? So
and he's played 5 games in a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
to his credit, that is a very short amount of games in a year and a half.
Right.
But it's the effort, I think, that people are worried about, like inconsistent effort. Like one night he's the most noticeable guy, and then the next night
he's completely invisible.
He's like expecting the puck to come to him almost, right?
Right. So if that's a character trait, then that's from an organizational standpoint, guys, if that's a character trait and that you've studied and you said, okay, this is something new that we didn't expect from this young player. We like his game. We liked his game. Now he's not giving that to us. We've talked to him time and time again, and that's why it's a story that's not going to go away. The only way that this story goes away is if he turns right and plays a solid 2-way game moving forward. And right, so the ball is in the player's court.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put this question up. This is from my dad. If Frost doesn't play to expectations next game, do you bench him again? And what about the game after that? Do you scratch him?
I think it depends on what you mean expectations. Like, if he
does everything that Lappy said,
even if he doesn't produce offensively, I don't think he gets scratched.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he'll be scratched at all. I just don't. I think he's too talented to be scratched.
Well, I think that's beyond the point, though. That's the message you send.
But like,
you know what I mean?
But and not again, like talented, like you're thinking though. Like talented, like I know that I can do this. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, again, like Travis Konechny is too talented to be benched too, but he's been benched.
Yeah,
he's an immensely talented player. I think it. Literally, again, I'm going to go back to Lou Lamoriello because I don't think people really understand how.
You're such a hard ass.
Well, I don't think people understand how good of a general manager he is. Like, I really don't think people understand it. Like, I think Barry Trout's an amazing coach, and I think he's much nicer than Lou. And I don't think Lou Lamoriello is a Mr. Nice guy at any stretch, but it is a level of expectations. Like, there's a reason that 2 of the not the best defensemen in the league are now being considered 2 of the best defensemen in the league. Pollock and Pellick. Like, people are like, oh, these guys are absolutely incredible. They deserve more money. They don't deserve more money. They're not that talented. The expectations they are very talented, but they're not superstars. Yeah. The expectations are
similar to Darnell Nurse.
But like, I do agree with that. But the expectations are raised. And when the expectations are raised, the entire team plays better. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And if you look at what the Flyers did last year, that was not the case. We had games where we just gave up. And there's no denial about that. And I'm not blaming the Phantoms here, and I'm not blaming Frost for this at all. But the Flyers organization, the time they gave up, they need to get rid of whatever that is in the system. Anybody who thinks that it's ever okay to give up in a game, goodbye.
Yeah.
Like that. And again, I'm not picking on anybody individually, but that needs to be the attitude.
Yeah, exactly. Because we don't know.
You don't want to wear a suit. Again, I'm just going to go back. You don't want to wear a suit because you're going to complain about that. That's a big deal to you.
It's so funny how that question got into so much from the show.
Well, because again, you don't want to shave your face for me, for your teammates. You think you're more important than your teammates? Goodbye. And again, I know it's an old school thing, but there's a reason it exists, and there's a reason Lou Lamoriello turned the Islanders into a mediocre team. And it's not just the coach; he did it as well. Look at what happened in Toronto after he left. You know, he was better. They were better with him. He does something. He had it again. I don't think it's for everybody, but I think there is a point to that. I'm not saying we have to be Lou Lamoriello, but I think that's why this is happening to Frost. I think maybe under a different coach, probably wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would have been playing.
Well, I think it's sorry, Chris. I think it's a great question. And
it is
Ed,
a great question.
Thank you, Ed, for asking that. I personally give him a period. I give him a period, and on the top line. And if the effort wasn't there, I wouldn't bench him. I'd bury him. I wouldn't scratch him. He'd be playing fourth line.
Yeah.
Fourth line minutes.
That's probably
I'd bury
accurate.
him. And then
put him on the second unit power play.
Not even. He wouldn't touch
the
ice.
Put him on the penalty kill.
You're damn right. Penalty kill.
He has said that he wants him on the PK, and he's going to use legitimately anybody that can play.
Right, and rightfully so.
Right.
But, you better damn well block a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you better damn well do the right things at the right times.
Couple hits or something.
Whatever it takes. But I would bury him. I wouldn't bench him. I'd bury him. And
well said.
And then from that point on, I think the kid's going to be fine.
I do too.
But
I know you read books too.
At this stage, if the effort isn't there, if that consistency is not there, and that's why, guys, listen, I'd be picking up the phone tomorrow. These types of stories are intriguing to me because
Craig, like you said, it's still developing, which is a great point.
Exactly.
And it's going to develop throughout the year.
Right. And if he's your guy and he's your top guy, and if he's going to be your first call up,
right,
then he better damn well bring a complete two-way game, because that's what you're going to need when you call the kid up. Because where's he going to play? Is he going to play third line center at the next level? Like, where do you have him slotted?
Probably second line?
Yeah, I mean, to fill you in, he was penciled in because Kevin Hayes is out. He was penciled in as second line center.
Right.
And then he didn't make the team.
Yeah. Exactly. And a lot of people had just assumed that, he'll make the team because of that, which wasn't the case. You still have to battle for a spot. And there were also a lot of people to that would just give him the spot because he's Frost, which that doesn't help either.
See, so the message was sent 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And maybe, we don't know, right? You can speculate, but the message was probably sent 3 or 4 times leading up to that point.
Yeah.
All right. So God rest her soul. My grandmother used to say, you burn your ass, you sit on the blisters. Maybe Mr. Frost is sitting on the blisters right now. Okay. So
and to your point, and I think we'll end it on this because we're already above 2 hours. I think the most important thing is how he responds. And we have Scott Lawton here. This was a guy who was also drafted in a similar position of Frost. He was never slated to be a top 6 guy. He wanted to be. Ron Hextall dropped him to the bottom, dropped him to the AHL. They forced him on the PK. He wanted to be a power play guy. Now Scott Lawton's one of the most beloved players on this team. Huge part of probably whatever championship is part
of our best defensive forwards.
Again, it's how you respond to the things that happens to you. It's not about taking a hit down. It's not about being benched. It's about going, okay, well, how do I give the coach what he wants? And why is he asking me these things, right? Is it actually going to make me a better player? Well, if it is, then I got to get better at these things because they're not going to play me. Like this is my barrier into the league. Like, let me, a lot of times, like, the one thing you learn as you're younger in like the working world is that you provide value to those that you work with, and you think of it that way. You don't think like, oh, well, I'm here to do this. You think like, okay, how do I provide my organization value? Well, they're asking this of me. So this is what they value. So I'm going to do the things that they ask me to do. And I really think that that's how he needs to focus on this, because the talent's already there. Nobody doubts that he can put up points at the NHL level, All right. Anything you guys want to say before we wrap this one up?
No,
I'm good. Thanks so much, guys, for the opportunity.
Absolutely, Craig.
I really appreciate it.
Craig, you want to tell people, anything that you have coming out, like anything you're working on, or anywhere they can follow you, or?
Well, thanks for that. So I'm the head scout of the Fredericton Red Wings of the Maritime Junior A Hockey League, or the MHL here in the Maritimes. So I am still covering the QMJHL from a writing standpoint. Rogers TV, I used to be the color analyst on Rogers. Unfortunately, they're not covering any games this season as of right now. So you could follow me at EAGS37, so at EAGS37, and jump over on FDS, so FDS Podcast Network. That's where all the my articles, when I do get around to writing a few articles. So, but yeah, so I've kind of stepped away from writing, probably twice a week or 3 times a week. I'm really focusing in on the scouting aspect as right now for Fredericton, but I'm still trying to put out some observations from the rink on my on Twitter from time to time, and writing some articles, and trying to tell and showcase some up and coming talent. So from this region and beyond. So, but thanks. Thanks
Absolutely.
again, guys.
Yeah, and make sure to check out Craig. Make sure to follow him on Twitter too. He's got good takes.
Yeah.
And obviously, Craig, we'll have you back on in multiple capacities, without a doubt there. Chris, anything you want to fill people in on?
No, I mean, just go Flyers.
Yeah, I was going to say everybody knows you, obviously.
Yeah. One last thing.
Sure. Yeah, please.
With regards to Zach McEwen, they've started a fantastic foundation.
Right.
It's my biggest fan foundation. So you can find it on Twitter, and you can find the website, and obviously they had a foundation or a memorial golf tournament in Craig McEwen's honor. So that's Zach's dad, who passed away suddenly when due to stroke, when Zach was in the bubble with the Canucks. And it's a phenomenal organization, just getting off the ground. They raised $38,750 at the first annual My Biggest Fan Foundation golf tournament. I was lucky and fortunate enough to be invited to the golf tournament this year in Charlottetown at Belvedere, and the NHLPA stepped up as well. There's some logistics behind that, getting the equipment moved out.
Let's put a link to it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Look at that.
Good job.
Thanks for that, Chris. And the NHLPA is giving 25 sets of equipment for young players to start grassroots. And I get pretty emotional talking about Zach's journey and his path to the National Hockey League, just because I know the player on a personal level. I know the family. They're all heart and soul. And anyway, it's they've been through a lot. They've been through a lot in the last 15 months. And I only wish good things for Zach and his family. And I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. And he's going to prove some people right in Philadelphia.
I love that, and I hope Philadelphia can make his future a little bit brighter than it already is. I think he's going to find a very nice home here. Like I was saying, I think it was like literally I was talking about this thing that the Flyers needed, and he just kind of landed in here. And I think Flyers jumped on him probably in a heartbeat when they saw he was available, because this is something we've definitely been looking for.
100%.
So, okay. Thank you, everybody. Chris, thank you for posting that. Make sure to follow Chris. Make sure to follow myself. I do have one thing to announce. I have a cool episode coming up for Getting Gritty this week. I have Mike Comito, who's the author of, I believe it's 365 Hockey. So it's a book that just came out about hockey stories. I'm going to have him on Tuesday. He has it's like for each day of the year, whatever, he has like a short little hockey story.
He's a phenomenal follow. What a great get.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I got him, so I'm pretty happy about that one. It'll be more of a general episode, so I just found out that I got him, so I'm pretty excited. So he'll be on this week, and then next week, and I'm gonna have Ryan Marker on as well. Who, Craig, you don't know Ryan Marker, but he actually just made it to the ECHL. He's a local guy. He's a friend. He grew up with one of my best friends playing hockey with him, and now he just made the Reading Royals. I'm sorry?
Ant Merrigan?
Yeah, he's friends with Anthony Merrigan, who's also been on my podcast, who runs a lot of hockey programs around here as well.
I played hockey with him.
Yeah, exactly. So Ryan Marker has just made the Reading Royals, and he's making an impact there, so I'm going to have him on as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool story. All right. Craig, thank you again. Chris, thank you as always, man. Thank you for setting this up. And remember, everybody, don't panic.